Hello fellow hunter. As a brief overview of yesterday's video, that you may check for the whole picture, I did a damage comparison between all the ramp-up options for the Rampage Gunlance to get the best damage setup of the weapon. From it I got two conclusions. The best combination was using Sharpness Type I. With Handicraft I it gives you white sharpness. Unlike the other superior types, it doesn't have a negative raw that basically cancels most of the benefit. No elemental boost, a no-brainer here for the normal and long types that are very bad applying status or elements. These are for wide shell type. This is an interesting choice. Normal is a bit ahead of long full busting, between 12 and 17 damage depending of the monster fire resistance. Also, normal has a stronger relative full burst after a blast dash. But long is simply superior at everything else damage-wise, and the extra range allows you to land hits that would miss otherwise. A typical full burster problem is that after a slam the monster sometimes flinches back. With a normal gunlance, all your shells will miss, losing massive damage, while with a long type, all or most will land. After adding the damage from the melee attacks, the distance is even less, a 1.8% calculated. I 100% recommend using the long type except for those who cares about these kinds of gains. In my tables, I also noticed that ARAKNALANCE damage was a bit behind in damage. This comes at not surprise because there is a huge difference in raw between both weapons. ARAKNALANCE has 170 natural raw, 180 with the ramp up used for elder dragons and beasts. Meanwhile the Rampage sports 220 raw, 50 or 40 points more. I always include in my calculation other fixed raw sources like Dango Booster, Power Talent Charm and a Demon Drug, so it is a comparison of 210 versus 250 raw, that is a 19% difference. To compensate for this, ARAKNALANCE has 25% affinity, natural white, 1 level 2 slot and 2 level 1 ones. At the end, this translates to a 2 slot advantage and 25% affinity. ARAKNALANCE also gets access to the Wyvern exploit ramp up, that is a 5% extra damage to melee and shelling against Wyvern type monsters. A Wyvern type is everything with Wyvern in its name. This includes Leviathans, which type has Wyvern in the Japanese name. I will use both in game demonstration and tables for comparing both gunlances. I lack the necessary attack boost 3 charm with 1 level 2 slot necessary for the real optimal ARAKNALANCE build. I also can't test the Wyvern exploit damage in the training room. For those I will relay in tables. There are the two similar builds I'm using to compare the Rampage Gunlance versus ARAKNALANCE. The setup is the classic Kaiser Bagel with an weakness exploit charm. This is for Rampage Gunlance 70% affinity with crit boost 3. ARAKNALANCE I'm going for 100% affinity and also critical boost 3. I will use the long version first to illustrate the point. To simulate the ramp up, I'm using some demon dust to boost the melee. In this take, the damage was 3458. There are 2 failed sweeps. With a chance of 70% means that every 10 sweeps, 3 will not crit. This take is within the expected result. These numbers are much higher than when I was doing my tests using the Howitzer Gunlance. Long is a powerhouse now. Now, the comparison using ARAKNALANCE. Since I don't have materials to ramp up the raw, I will simulate the extra raw by using some demon dust. Here the result is 3426, that is a very tiny less than long gunlance. A 0.9% difference that is negligible. Under these circumstances, long does as well while benefiting from the range and extra damage in every other shell attack. ARAKNALANCE's only advantage is 1 free slot, but you could downgrade the build with the long gunlance to critical I3, win 1 slot and still tie in damage. And the same principle comes if you pick the normal version of the Rampage Gunlance. This one deals 3554 damage in this take. That is a 2.7% extra damage over the long gunlance and 3.6% over ARAKNALANCE. The conclusion of this empirical test is that basically there is the level 2 slot advantage is not real because you can downgrade your build, get the same damage and as a GIF, long type shelling. Okay, I'm not 100% accurate, you gain 2 level 1 slots over the Rampage Gunlance. Against other lesser hit zones like the Mechanodon legs, the long gunlance still wins in the tests. Now, One thing to consider is that the real optimal damage of ARAKNALANCE is when you instead add attack boost 4 to the build. This raises the damage at 2.5%, so it ties with the long Gunlance and still loses to the Rampage 1. Heck, I could even go for a blue sharpness in the Rampage GL, forgetting about protective polish, and still be close to ARAKNALANCE. The conclusion is that it doesn't matter how you cut it. Without Wyvern Exploit, the Rampage Gunlance is superior here. And what happens with Wyvern Exploit? Even without looking at the tables, a 5% extra damage to both shells and damage must out-damage the 3.7% advantage of the Rampage Gunlance. That is what happens. Here ARAKNALANCE even counts with the extra advantage that the bonus damage to shell is fixed damage and unaffected by hit zones. The difference is not big, but the winner is the winner. The verdict is clear. ARAKNALANCE is the best Gunlance against monsters of the Wyvern type, beating even the Rampage Gunlance. In all other cases, the Rampage Gunlance is the best one. In any case, all the differences are between 5% that aren't significant. You can pick your personal favorite and get away with it with no much difference in your clear times. I personally will use only the Rampage Gunlance because the long type being superior and because I can transform it into a giant corn. I'm a man of priorities.